I practice expressing my thoughts as much as possible. I try to do this whenever I call. Tell you about your interviews.
I remember being really nervous for my interview. I interviewed at Molding College where I had to interview. Actually, I had two more interviews, one at Martin College and one at St. Hughes, which is where I am now. And during these four interviews, I saw many interesting questions. One really interesting question I saw was a question about cube and the number of varieties a cube has. Well, 3 dimension, 4 dimension, and even higher dimension. And it didn't stop there. We also discussed how many edges there are in this dimension, and we tried to find a formula for each one of these. I thought it was quite interesting. There were also very hard questions. One particular question I remember is I was asked to sketch the normal distribution, which was like bell curve. And I was asked to sketch its derivative by I, and its derivative as well. So to derivative, and that was easy enough. You just get it. And then she asked me, do I notice anything about the number of turning point and the number of line as we go down? And then I noticed that as the differentiate its time, the number of line and the number of turning point increased by 1. And then the question was given to me, can you prove that formula is true? And that was really difficult. I was really stumped at the beginning, and actually I didn't know what to say, but luckily for me, the interviewer, he gave me a prompt. He gave me a hint about some theorem that is really useful for this, and I immediately managed to use this hint and then go on to answer the question. I thought I was really scary at first, but really rewarding at the end. And I didn't get anything about my personal statement in the interview, which I thought it wasn't too straight. I suppose thought it wasn't really interesting at the interview.
Which aspect applied the most to the tutors?
I think that interviewers really like to see me struggle through the question because they want to see how I think. They want to see the pressure in which I go about a question. And so they were really like giving me a difficult question so that I do struggle with it. And they would often give me hint to see if I can cooperate with them. If I do to attain the university and to prepare for interviews, I keep that in mind. I practice expressing my thoughts as much as possible. I did this by speaking out loud when I'm by myself answering a math question, and I try to do this whenever I call.
Oxford Mathematics Interview Preparation.
Well, I've also mentioned that I try to speak my thoughts as much as possible. Rather than that, I was really keen on solving math British Math Olympiad question. I feel like that helped a lot my problem-solving skills. It gave me a good institution on how to solve question, and I think it made me a better problem solver all around. And I did. In the interview, mock interviews with my teachers, and they were quite keen now and to do the session with me. They emphasized that I should be speaking my thoughts as much as possible, even when I was struggling to come up with an answer. They encouraged me time and time again to try to give suggestions as how to solve the problem. For example, maybe we can solve this by induction even though you are not sure how you do that and so on. So I did these things quite often, and I did it about 2 times a week with my teachers, these mock interviews, and these other things I've mentioned. I try to keep them on getting in the background as I